been thinking about being the now. And one of the quote from Dogen, from Zen, is Zen goes side down in Japanese, which means front and back is cut, is divided. And the example for that is that if you have a spring and it goes to summer, don't think that spring go turn into summer. The spring is spring, and when it comes to summer, it's summer. So when the butterfly shows up, for some reason, the flowers are blooming. In principle, I have thought and maybe explain as such that Sila Samadhi Panya is like you do the right conduct and you have the calm and quiet mind, then you come up with an insight. And I believe that's true from my experience. When you come up with an insight, you're not thinking anything, but you're as if to go deeper into your consciousness or unconscious part, as if all the memories and whatever is meaningful is self-organizing itself, so that comes up with wisdom. But when I think about this Zengo Saidan, front and back is divided, and the being here and now, that Sila Samadhi Panya can be interpreted differently, and there are people who are saying that, the six patriarchs said that the Samadhi and the wisdom is one. And I can see that physiologically, when you are meditating and deep into meditation, there's a state of samadhi. That's when you feel all the cells of your body is activated, vibrating, and you're totally relaxed and the mind is empty. So you're here and now. And then from that, the wisdom may pop up, but it doesn't matter if you are just here and now. As much as I feel those sensations throughout my body right now, there's a sense of aliveness within me. And that's you can call it steady state or eternal state of being when you are aware. And in that space and the time, there's no notion of time, because mind is not functioning. It's no mind, empty mind. So on one hand, it makes sense to describe the way of how the wisdom may pop up. Sila Samadhi Panya is the way from A to B to C. If you don't do the right conduct, maybe you don't get to the right samadhi, and therefore you don't come up with the right panya. That's a logic. But if you look at from just being here and now, and I use the idea of the Garden of Eden, the trees are growing without thinking. There's no right conduct, samadhi, and panya. It's just automatic. It continues that way. So if you are with the law of universe, empty-minded, you are in the zone, you are in the now, then samadhi and panya may pop up. Or it is popping up all the time, because without getting up into the mind and enlightened, the light pops up, all the activities in our body is functioning by itself. When I walk out, I see the trees and branches. I feel them alive. They don't have mind, but they're alive. And if I'm another tree next to him, to this other tree, and we may figure out the relationship because of how the water is distributed, wind is blowing, and all of that. So the organization can find its own course, the wisdom, without mind. It comes a natural way of how we manifest the law of nature. So Sila Samadhi Panya, and thinking of the Samadhi and Panya as one, is a good way to digest. The other way I can think of, just briefly, talking about the Sila Samadhi Panya, when I have some concerns and I'm suffering in the mind, I can't solve this. What do I do? when that happens, I just stay quiet, not use my mind, just be aware. Then I feel the whole body eventually become transparent and all the cells are vibrating. I get there. When I'm getting there, there's no time. And there's no memory of those things about the problem I had. It's gone, erased, irrelevant. The reason is that the aliveness, how the body can function without the mind, is very natural, and it will find its own course to live. So that's as simple as that. So I was playing this pickleball, and every service or every ball I hit, I get into this timelessness, or even thought about Zengo side down, cutting the front and back, to refresh and get into the moment, the awareness. So that is one way to practice in the daily life. So more we have those calm and quiet mind, awareness, forget about the time, logic, we have that pleasant sensation, blissfulness, and everything in order, following the law of nature. So I was thinking of Michio, my friend, who was awakened from the Shin Buddhism, and after he had the experience, he said he lost the sense of time. And that triggered me a lot just recently, because I wasn't thinking in that term about the time dimension. So I started to look into it, and I could feel immediately that I can lose the sense of time. Because if you're in samadhi, you are losing the time. There's no time dimension in terms of cause and effect and how much time and when it happens. Our mind doesn't think like that. It's just empty. Yet I'm awake and being here and now. So talking the same situation, but using the different word, timelessness, awareness, emptiness, alertness, stillness, those are pointing the same thing by using the word, but the essence of that has to be captured as experience of wisdom, and we need to learn, grow, or train, or untrain is a better word, because mind gets into the way. So it is almost like untraining the mind so that we appreciate what our cells can do on its own by following the law of nature, because that's the engine of our life. So I was thinking of the freedom from the time constraint. So I decided to check on the internet. I like Eckhart Tolle, so I Googled Eckhart Tolle and time, or timelessness, and there was one video which only had 111 views at the time. But first, he used the word like timeless state of consciousness. I can agree with that. And then he talked about when you realize that, by being here now and be aware, every cell of the body is vibrant with life and free of time, and I can relate to that. And he was talking about surrendering. And some may have a vivid change to that, others may not have, but have a peak of it. But by untraining the mind to overtake, we can start to be with that state of a timeless state of consciousness where there's all cells of the body is vibrant. And in my case, I had my own awakening 22 years ago, long time ago, but since then I noticed that my body is, I call it waku-waku, aliveness, it's there. Cells of the body is dancing around or transparent within myself. But I lose it. And he said some are more easy, easier to find it. But it's actually, he said, it's rare to be turning around very quickly, but usually it takes time. But I can see his message in there. And when you have it, you feel at ease. I have a video I posted, be at home. That's the sense. And the way to cultivate that is a self-observation, to know what's going on. Be aware of what is going on. And this is the experiential wisdom. It's kind of related to Shila Samadhi Panya. You have to have in the Samadhi state, which is being the now, and be aware. Then you eventually find that there's a moment of choice when the old bad habit will pop up and make you feel like a self-pity or miserable or upset. There's a moment of choice at the time. So he says that it's like holding a hot coal. You don't want to catch it and drop it when those moments happens. So that's the experiential wisdom that he explained, that we'll get to that level, and I can see that. When you are doing the meditation and letting go of the thought, and the thought pops up, and then you don't deal with it, it's not a hot coal. It has some grabbing pull to drive you into there, but that's the hot coal symptom that we can find. And when you notice it, let go of it by accepting as it is, and don't get tangled up with this negative energy that may come. I think in his video he was talking about in the last decade we had 100 million deaths we had from the wars. And he says it's insane, all due to our caught up in the mind, not relating to the source of who we are. That's my terminology, meaning that if we are aligned with or be with the law of nature, as much as all the natural event that we see around in nature is taking on its own. In Japanese, shizen is nature. Shi is on its own, zen is as it is. So they have, or the law has its own power, manifesting, like I mentioned about the tree branches growing, without interfering as much with each other. And all the nature will find a way. The humans are different because of the use of the mind. But when I studied Myokonin, which is the Shin Buddhist sect, people who are not educated as much, but has a very strong sense of the compassion of Amida Buddha, who would save them, so that they don't use the mind to fight against, but they call Amida Buddha for help. Namu Amida Butsu is the, the anchor process, so that they will let go of self-power and let the other power to take over. So that would keep them inner space clear and feel appreciated for the help of Amida, which is the law of nature. Manifesting. It's not you're trying to fix it with the mind and the cause and effect and what tool to use, but using no tool but nature's way, or Amida Buddha's way, to take care of themselves. Actually, when I was talking like this, I had a little conversation with my friend, and she was asking me what do I have prepared or not about the board meeting, and I said, I'm prepared by not preparing anything. It's like a here and now, and not to be caused to take any action for the sake of doing something which may or may not happen. So have the emphasis of being here and now. That's the idea, and that's the point. I think Eckhart Tolle mentioned that there's a questionnaire asking about inner purpose related to keep ourselves not to be trapped in time. That's the idea. Or die to the past is another word that I written down, so that you don't caught up because of what happened, this and that, therefore what should happen. You don't go backward, but stay in present and not to drill into any grab from the mind. You forgot this, you should do this, or I have to do that. Let them settle on their own. Like nature will take care of themselves if you let them sit around. And the important thing may pop up and not important thing may go out. The necessary skill may be developed and unnecessary skill may be gone. So that's, to me, is the process. And more we have the free of time. Time dimension is gone and be here and now. We have more of a self-generating, self-organizing process happening inside of ourselves to take over the nature's way. That will lead us find a peaceful mind, and no meaning of time. Time has lost its dimension because you're not using the mind to play with it, and be more like a floating on the water, or I call it the surfing on the wave of the universe, more naturally. And this question I said, okay, that's inner purpose, but there's outer purpose we have to have as living being in the society. And Eckhart Tolle's answer was that that's true, but it's like a game. One thing we can remember is that when we play this game, all the game has ending. So to remember the impermanence when we are busy in our mind of how much money to make and which country to visit and what you have done great or what happened to your life. But we're going to die and people won't remember. So that you have to have a good balance of external dimension and the internal dimension. But the fine word that I heard from Eckhart was that you can have the whole world, but if you lose the soul, what would that be? I think that's the words of Christ. So these are the basics that Eckhart Tolle mentioned about. And the bottom line is that when we are busy with our mind, we are busy with a game. But even if we win the game in the external dimension, because of the impermanence, we may be losing the game internally, not living here and now, and be appreciative and have the gratitude of the law of the universe living within us to live our life. Anyway, such is a brief reflection of the video and some of the thoughts that I had. My summary of this is be attentive more about how I live my life, how I spend my time, be in the now and appreciate the moment. Keep having the sense of transparency, resonance, and make sure that I have a way so that when the choice that I have to make is to come, it may be like a wisdom from inside, I will be prepared by not preparing, just letting things to happen.